Good evening, everyone, and we are now attending the Tuesday, June 21st Plymouth Select Board meeting. If you'd all rise to pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we call the meeting to order. Are there any special town meeting preparations? I don't believe there are any. Do anybody? Nope. So now we're going to get right into the town-earned surplus property. And for the folks at home, there is a PowerPoint on the screen, and we will go through a few of the properties that are considered surplus, but there is a much larger list that Mr. Brothers will be addressing.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Kavako. Just to reiterate, this is a discussion about the surplus town property and a background on why this came to be. So a property list was requested at a prior Board of Selectmen meeting. In addition to that, surplus properties were a topic of discussion at many precinct caucuses about surplus land, selling land, and where we stood with that. So if you remember correctly from the last time we met, there was a big discussion on funding the $1.4 million of this 46 Sandwich Road property that we would have to borrow. If we were to sell town properties, it gets put into an account that we actually can use instead of borrowing to offset that, so either lowers our borrowing or makes our borrowing zero, so there's no actual interest paid on it. So the goal is to find properties we can sell to cover the borrowing needs of the $1.4 million of 46 Sandwich Road, if approved tonight at town meeting, in addition to future project funding needs. So if there's a surplus over the 1.4 of the sale of any properties we have, again, that gets put into kind of a reserve account that can be used to offset any future land purchases. The assessing department has compiled a list of 1,100 plus properties, of which 535 of these properties are tax title. There's going to be a larger discussion later on next week about a couple tax title, but just keep that in mind when we work through the bigger process on this. And again, the goal of tonight is to review and obtain direction from the board on 3 significant properties that were previously approved for sale. And again, just to reiterate, discussion beyond these 3 properties will take place at next Tuesday's board meeting. And I apologize, I'll change the coloring next time so you guys can see it a little better. The first one is 0 Spooner Street. It's the old North Fire Station. It is on 0.19 acres. Its assessed current value is just over $500,000. And the last time this property was put out to bid was in 2021. 2 bids were received. The highest one was for $275,000 as an outright purchase. The property was found to contain PFAS in the soil, so the buyer did not move forward with this purchase. And obviously, as we go forward, this will now be disclosed to any potential buyers we have. The next is 253 South Meadow Road, which is the old school administration building. It's on just under an acre of property. The current assessed value is $850,000. This property was put out to bid in 2019. 2 bids were received. The highest was for just over $650,000, but that bid total did not meet the minimum bid requirement. And the third property is 91 Long Pond Road, which sits at 2.13 acres. It's assessed for just under $1.3 million. This property was put out to bid actually multiple times. The last one was in 2013. In a quick search, we found that no bids were actually received in this property, and there was actually limited requests for the bid documents, which I found interesting. The site was previously proposed as a potential fire station, #1 headquarters, which is defeated at town meeting in 2019. So for discussion and things to consider is, given the prior attempts to sell these properties, would an outside marketing firm yield a larger financial return by marketing these properties for us? And the question I think the board should ask itself is, if we choose to go this route, we will need to review and follow all procurement requirements if we use an outside agency. In addition, the use of an outside agency will add a time onto the selling process in order for us to publish, and whether we go through an RFQ, RFP, or an IFB, and meet all 30B requirements. If we choose not to, we can review and revise the previously used bid documents and re-advertise while still following the 30B process. And that's what leads us to our recommendations. Our recommendation would be, it would be two separate motions. The recommendation would be that we look to approve it to sell all three of these tonight, with the one catch of 91 Long Pond Road being contingent upon town meeting approval tonight of Article 1, just for a safety net. If Article 1 fails, we still then have that property to view and look at closer for potential location for our fire station. And motion number 2 was, we would make a motion that the board approves the town manager to solicit proposals from real estate marketing firms for the sale of town-owned properties. Now, the big thing in motion 2 is that it doesn't lock us in. It's just really, we want to review the process to see if it makes sense, because you guys know as well as I do, we may sit here today and it may look great on paper that we think they're only going to charge us 5%, when reality is when the final bid comes in and it's charging 15%. Does it really make sense? So this is just to get the process going, to look at an outside firm and put that out to receive solicitation for quotes and such, of what that may be. So feel free to ask any questions.
Harry?
Brad, have we ever used an outside real estate firm, marketing firm, as we're calling it?
Yep, so I can answer very basically. So in 2019, when I look back in the procurement's website, which is kind of a little bit hard to follow, and we're going to work on revamping that with them. In 2019, I did see an RFP put out to actually find an advertising firm to push this. Now, where that went, honestly, I didn't dive any deeper on it, but it's not, I don't think it's new for us to look at an outside marketing firm.
Well, my question was not an outside marketing firm. I mentioned particularly getting under the marketing concept, going specifically to a commercial real estate firm. A marketing firm doesn't necessarily list any of these properties on the commercial, let's call them MLS sources. Is that something we've been missing out on?
I think so, yes. And when I put up there marketing firm, I kind of, in my mind, am wrapping in real estate, but it's good that you noted that, because someone may not have that same image that I do.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
one
agree.
thing for somebody to tell us, you need to do this kind of advertising, that kind of advertising, da-da-da-da-da, and it's another for a firm to say, we will do this kind of advertising, that kind of advertising, and including listing it on websites and social media where people who might buy it will actually see it, as opposed to just hoping they do.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Charlie?
On Zero Spooner Street, the PFAS in the soil, do we have any idea what it would cost to remediate that?
Through the chair, we haven't done an analysis on the cost to remove the PFAS from the soil. I can tell you that PFAS is considered one of those legacy chemicals. It's most of a concern if it's found in water, because the public will consume through the water supply. This is just found in the soil, so we don't believe it poses an imminent threat to the community. But that being said, it is contaminated, and that was the major reason why the one bidder decided to rescind its only offer.
So would it be worth it for us to, how much would it cost to have somebody go in and take a look and give us check the soil?
Yeah, we definitely could have an LSP take a look at it.
'Cause that would make a
do the
big difference with the
analysis,
price,
and then
too.
determine what the cost is. And the cost would be based upon removing that soil and then returning it with fill.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that, though.
I have a question, if, Mr. Cirque, just a second. So one of the things that I'm concerned about is that the properties that we did put out to bid a couple years ago, and they did not meet those thresholds, it basically put out everything like dead in the water because of that. Is there any kind of language or something that we can put in this bid process that if we have to lower the threshold, we don't have to kill it and then start all over again?
I mean, we, as the board, controls the full scope of the actual bid itself, so I don't see how we could not add that in
Because
there.
I don't want, like, before, it was, you know, I think the minimum bid on the
I think South Meadow Road, I
South
think
Meadow
was
was
either 700 or 750,000, yeah.
Yeah, and we came in at, what, 663?
Yep.
So it was so close, and it was an avid, it was someone that really wanted it, but we just couldn't get there, and then when we didn't meet that minimum bid, this process just stopped. And I don't want to do that again, because then it's another 30 days and 60 days and 30 days and 60 days. So I want to be able to put some kind of language in there that if something comes under that minimum bid, that we're able to negotiate. But I also don't want people to think that here's our minimum bid, but, you know, whatever kind of thing.
If I could, so instead of doing an IFB, which is an invitation for bids, which sets the bid threshold, we could consider doing RFP, which is a request for proposals, which it's not so focused on the cost, but it's actually the proposed use. So we could look at proposals, how much they're willing to pay for the property, and what are they willing to do with the property. So that sometimes is a more helpful process. You may not gain as much money, but you can certainly control the type of development that would go on that property.
Question. If we're going to use a commercial broker, which I think is a great idea, why wouldn't we let them comp the buildings out and set a price, just like selling your home? You know, put a price out there and see who's interested. I don't know why we should have a minimum. It's not an auction. So,
Are we required to have a minimum?
No.
Would we be able to sign, for lack of a better word, a typical commercial listing agreement?
No, so these are closed bids. So you could not have a bid price and just the award go to the highest bidder. So in the last situation, where you set the minimum bid as 700, then for the only bid at 663, you could have accepted that bid if you didn't assign a minimum bid. The reason for doing a minimum bid is to ensure that the property that is going to be sold, you will get exactly what you're expecting in return. That's why we set minimum bids, but you don't have to set a minimum bid.
but my question, though, it's, when you're selling a house, if you're, Harry, you can attest to this because you're a Realtor, and Betty, you are too, you don't disclose what your seller's minimum bid is, or what, wouldn't, if we have a professional commercial broker, something that's all they do, tell us what the building's worth, show some comps to show that it's worth that, and then put it on the market for that price, and then see what happens. Instead of having minimum bids or it's not an auction. This isn't like, if it was an auction, you have to have a minimum, an auction. If not, people can come in and just, steal the place.
Right, so if I could, so you could use this real estate firm to identify the comps, to your point, and we'll just say the comps came in at 650, you could go ahead and then advertise to sell the property in hopes that there'll be a respondent at the 650 price. But you have to determine how you're going to make the award. And so if the award is going to be the highest bidder, then we put that in the bid documents itself.
But it's like anything, the commercial realtor can make recommendations. If there's 2 or 3 people, for instance, that put offers in, they're going to recommend who's the best offer. Look at the financial part, look at, the contingent on, and they'll recommend, obviously it's the town's, we have the right to to accept the offers, but we have to listen to the experts and what they recommend. In other words,
Yes.
it's pretty close to the offers, but this group is much stronger, and
The only
they're gonna
problem you run
do-
into is 30B, the 30B requirements we have to follow. If we put a RFP out, we can kind of follow that process of what you're saying. But if we don't, and we just get an IFB, we have to actually take the highest bidder. There's no, it's not like selling, it's not as easy, I wish it was, as selling your home. That's the negative side of 30B.
But that's the difference. An RFP is a request for proposals. So you do a comparative analysis and you identify what are the key indicators for you to make that award beyond the price. So how are they going to develop it? What's the proposed use? And you can look at all those factors. What's their financial strength as an institution? You can look at all those factors, and then, so that's one envelope. The second envelope is the actual price they're bidding on. So that's the RFP process. The IFB is a straight bid, goes to the highest bidder. It doesn't matter what their proposed development is going to be.
I kind of like that, because,
Gives you a little bit more control.
gives us a little bit more control. And I also do think that, though, with a commercial real estate company, I think we should set an expectation after we have that professional, professional appraisal, per se, and then make a decision. I don't know what you gentlemen think, but we definitely want to get, this is the market, we want to get as much as we possibly can for these properties, and they've all been stagnant for way too long, so it really is the
Well,
pleasure.
these are the three properties that, in Brad's multi-day trip down the rabbit hole of our property listings and my number of hours with Brad and over the weekend attempting to identify properties other than this, these are the ones that come quickly to mind as available to be sold. How we go about it obviously has to fit inside of 30B. Is that what it is? Inside of 30B. So, I think Brad's given us two motions here, both of which you would have to fit 30B procedures in the process. One of them seems to be that the town manager sell those as long as the town meeting, if town meeting approves the sale of, or Article 1, the sale of 46 Sandwich Road. And motion 2 is, to me, the best of the two, because it begins the process regardless of what happens tonight. Okay, we've got these three properties that we know that are top of the list, identified as saleable, and motion 2 allows the town manager to begin the process regardless of what happens. So that we know the resolutions for these properties. So for instance, say this evening, Article 1 is not approved. And people begin talking about the Water Barn property again, which is only, 2.13 acres?
0.13. Yep.
Which is drastically below Chief Foley's 4-acre concept. I don't know how they would fit something like that in there, but whatever. It doesn't mean that we are going to sell it, but it puts us in a position to be able to move quickly at any time in the future, as we identify, even as we identify other properties. So, I'd like to make a motion that the board approves the town manager to solicit proposals from real estate marketing firms for the sale of town-owned properties.
I'll second that motion.
Second?
Oh, Richard has.
Uh,
You want to let Richard?
Well, we're in discussion. Can you just see if the board, John?
All right, Brad, I thought I heard you say at the beginning of this presentation, before this slide showed up there, that this would be an agenda item next week for discussion? Or you're looking for some
We're
sort of
gonna,
vote?
yeah, we're gonna come back to the board with more information regarding the 1,100 properties. These three were just specific to today's discussion.
And this was properly posted under the open meeting law? This,
Tonight?
yes?
Yes.
these three?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're in discussion on this motion. Mr. Helmer has made a motion for the approval of motion number 2. And this doesn't tie us in with anything. At this stage of the
Right.
game, it's time invested from town staff to pursue that option, but really no expenditure of money,
That's correct.
okay? And not tied into anything, correct?
That's right.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anyone
No, no,
else?
no, it will be commercial too, a commercial real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. We can pursue it, make it explicit for commercial real estate.
Okay. Mr. Cirque?
Rich Cirque, Precinct 2. Why is motion 1, when we talk about 91 Long Pond Road, contingent upon approving 2022 Summer Special Town Meeting Article 1? If the Long Pond Road site has been deemed to be inadequate for the fire department, why shouldn't it be treated the same way as 0 Spooner Street and 253 South Meadow Road? That's one question. And the other question is, I don't understand what the difference needs to be between motion 1, which is authority to sell the properties, and motion 2, which authorizes the town manager to solicit proposals from marketing firms. I know the difference between the two, but I don't understand why we would choose one as opposed to the other. Why not solicit proposals with respect to all the properties?
I can answer that quickly. So motion 1 and 2 are two separate motions. They shouldn't be looked at as options. They're two completely separate motions.
Yeah.
So it's not pick 1 or pick 2. They should be viewed and read separately.
Okay,
So I know it shows a little bit,
well, on motion 1,
correct.
and my first question is, why is Long Pond Road contingent upon approval of the 2022 Summer Special Town Meeting article? I mean, any sale would have to go through town meeting, unless it's been previously authorized to be sold.
These three, from a prior board, these three properties have already gone through that process. That's why they were already put out to bid prior to this. So I guess I listed this just to reaffirm the board to go through the exercise again, because I don't know who was here and who wasn't here for specific ones, but it's good just to go through the process again,
So
just
the-
to reaffirm that.
If I may, so the answer is that the three properties in motion 1 already have authority to sell.
Correct.
So there's, okay.
Yep. And 91 Long Pond Road is specific on their contingent, because after discussion with the Chief Foley, we felt like holding on to this for one more view if Article 1 fails was worthwhile. If that property is to be deemed sizable to build a fire
You
station
mean there's a
headquarters.
possibility that he could see that site as even though it's less than 4 acres, that he might see his way clear to approve it?
Well, I would say, if I could jump in, that's not, as you know, it's not an ideal location. Town meeting had already voted against this property and the $30 million request to build Station 1. But it's an option. It's not an ideal location. It's not a location that we want to continue to have conversations about. But, they're not, as we pointed out before, we're not making land. And if this becomes the fallback option, we may have to go back to the drawing board and have that conversation again.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, did you have something? Okay. Okay, just so folks know, that the PAC TV will have to not have us airing live at 5:30, just to prepare for a town meeting. But I actually have a comment as to what Mr. Cirque said. I mean, town meeting has already deemed that property as not where they want to be, and it's not a feasible location. So I agree that whether it moves or not, Article 1 moves or not tonight, those are the three properties that we have deemed for sale. So you can't fit, if you need 4 acres, you can't fit 2.1 acres. You can't fit 4 acres into 2.1. So I would agree that those three properties up for sale. So
Just from my general discussion with Chief Foley was, they were looking at purchasing an additional lot that added on, I think, maybe 1 or 2 acres. Now, again, the board may know more about that than I do, but that was the general theme, was it wasn't just going to be built in that 2.13. We were going to have to purchase an abutting property to make the scope work.
Right, and that is, in real estate 101, you have to have,
You need a willing buyer and a willing seller.
Right,
So
so-
otherwise, it's unicorns and puppy dog tails if you have not identified a willing seller.
right,
We can stay live until 5:50.
okay. Is there any more discussion?
The only thing, can I add on one more piece that I thought about when you guys were discussing this, is if we go with the RFP process, we can negotiate the price as well. So let's say you find a proposal more highly advantageous than another, okay, you're number one, but the price is a little bit lower than what the property we feel is worth. We have the ability to go back to that bidder and renegotiate with them to come up on a price. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Brizzi, but that's my understanding of an RFP process, is you can go back to the actual bidder, the most advantageous bidder, and renegotiate the price.
Well, I would say typically with the RFP process, you have 2 envelopes. Each proposal consists of 2 envelopes. One is the narrative, how they respond, the qualitative proposal, and you go through that based upon the things I discussed earlier. The second proposal is just based upon the price. And so you look at that as a secondary view of its entirety. Going back and trying to renegotiate the price is, I think, less likely of a proposition. I think it's something that you wouldn't want to do. I wouldn't want to be charged with negotiating after proposals have been submitted by all developers.
It's an option, though, just to put it all on the table, it's an option. That way, if someone's close and you're only $50,000 apart, you can try to meet that number. But I agree, it's not the most advantageous to go down.
Okay,
Correct me if I'm wrong, though, those sorts of determinations are for the future and not for tonight.
That's
Correct.
right.
So we're touching the weeds here.
Correct.
So once again, I'll just restate my motion that select board member Bletzer seconded. I motion the board approves the town manager to solicit proposals from real estate marketing firms for the sale of town-owned properties.
all those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, so moving on to.
Can I quickly thank Mr. Brothers for the
Sure.
immense amount of work I know he did over the last number of days?
We thank them every day.
Thank you, guys. And do you want to discuss motion 1, just so we go through that process as well, just so we're ready to move forward?
I think we should put motion 1 on
Okay.
on the next town meeting, the next select board's agenda.
Sound good?
If no one else has any.
No, that's what I was going to say. Motion one, if you're going to discuss that in detail, that has to be next week.
Right, right, okay.
Yeah, my thinking is that what we're doing here tonight is just demonstrating a response to some of the feedback that we've heard that the town never sells the properties that they say they are, and we just want to make sure people are aware we're selling them.
Correct. So now, next, we have license and administrative notes. If everyone, there was only one change, Eel River Beach Club, 110 Warren Ave, Emily Hurstack is requesting a one-day all-alcohol license for evening cocktails being held from 4 PM to 9 PM on the following dates: June 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 27th, 28th, 29th, and 30th of 2022, and July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 2022. The reason why the time changed from 5 to 4, and additional 2 dates were added.
I'll make the motion.
Discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Special occasion limousine, 170 Court Street. Diane Dockery is requesting a new vehicle for hire operator license for the following: Oscar Lazema, 10 Archer Ave, Pembroke, Mass.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Now, we have administrative notes. Are there any questions on any administrative notes? And if not, we look to move them as a group. Sure, John?
Through the chair, question for the town manager. Derek, number one, it's all a $125,000 transfer within the context of the enterprise fund?
That's right. So, yeah, so the money that we're transferring to the enterprise account, 25,000 will come from a human resources line item, and 100,000 from a veterans line item.
Okay.
And these are and this is to cover the cost of the climbing fuel prices that we're all experiencing.
Correct. Is there a ceremony out there tomorrow?
Yes, so tomorrow evening at 2 PM at the airport, the county commissioners will be presenting a $2.2 million opera check to the town to upgrade the airport wastewater treatment plant.
Okay. I can't make that. I would love to have been there, but I'm happy to see that within the email I just got that Mr. Maher is leaving us. I don't know what his last day is, but certainly I'm going to do everything in my power to attend his retirement. He's done a phenomenal job out there.
He's 25 years, I believe. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Helm?
On number 3, Derek, Tiffany's not here, so I just want to make sure that in this 5-year host community agreement is the donations that they, and perhaps Mr. Badeau knows.
I believe that is in there.
It was in the packet.
It was in the packet?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
There is a annual community benefit payment of approximately $15,000, and then a charitable contribution of not less than $35,000.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So, does anyone want to move these as a group?
I'll move them as a group.
Second.
In discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Now, we see some lovely gentlemen out in our audience, and I'm not sure, this was a quick meeting. Our 6 o'clock meeting is actually town meeting, so I didn't know if you were here for any particular reason.
Actually, we're going to go to the town hall meeting as part of the Citizens Community Merit Badge,
Okay,
so,
perfect.
yeah, we're going to the next half hour, so.
Perfect. All right.
Thank you.
So a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we'll see everybody in a half hour.